And I want to start with, as we kind of move towards next week, I want to start with this moment, right? This particular moment, this particular place, this particular time. And, some of you may know that we're in Hanukkah. How many people are kind of aware of Hanukkah? Any Hanukkah people, right? You don't have to be Jewish, right? Just any, it's Hanukkah time. Yo, Hanukkah. Yes. Okay. Hanukkah, 8 days. So you know the Hannukah story. The Hannukah story is about the Greek Seleucids, about 160 years before the Common Era, before Jesus. And they go in this Hellenistic mission. It's a Hellenizing mission. Hellenism means the spreading of Greek culture. And they go to deconstruct, to defile the temple in Jerusalem. Temple as in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Temple as in Ark of the Covenant, right? Temple as in, right, the standing for the great tradition of mysticism that sees reality in every jot and tittle as ultimately meaningful and sees the ethos of the human being as participating in the eros of the cosmos. So that movement is challenged by Greece. Greece views man as a spectator to time and existence. Greece removes from the center of the cosmos the throbbing and yearning dignity of the individual human being with all of their pathos. And there's this movement of Hellenism. And they go and they defile the temple. And most of the Hebrews of the time feel that this is where it's going. This is where the power lies. This is where the energy's going. And they become Hellenists. And there's a small group. It's always a fringe group. There's a small group. There's a small band. It's a band of outrageous lovers. And they call themselves Maccabees. And they come from a little town called Modi'in, right, which is still today a village about 20 minutes from Jerusalem. And they challenge the priesthood, which wants to join the Hellenists. And they recapture the temple. Now, stay close, friends. It's a beautiful story. And next week and the week after, we're going to be telling the Christmas story. And on Ramadan, we're going to tell the Ramadan story. And on, Buddhist moments, we'll tell stories of the Buddha. Because one of the things we do here is we integrate the best of the great traditions with the best of modernity and the best of postmodernity, the best of evolution, the best of physics, the best of engineering. We weave it all into a new story, which is greater than the sum of the parts, which is the new story that can become the basis for a global ethos, for a global civilization. So we're doing here a little weaving right this week in a strand of the new story. So what happens? So stay with me. It's very beautiful. So this small band of outrageous lovers who have no political power and they barely have a budget and they're struggling, and there's a group of like 20, 30, 40, 50 of them at the center and a few hundred people around them. So they organize this bottom up grassroots rebellion and they manage to retake the temple. But let's just hear this as we start. It's really kind of crazy gorgeous, right? So you got these Maccabees, these band of outrageous lovers, and they're victorious. Great victory. Fabulous, huge, gorgeous victory. They reconquer the temple. They reconquer Jerusalem. The only thing is that if you study history, you realize that their victory lasted for about, ready for this? For about 25 years, 30 years. And then the Greek Seleucids send other armies, and ultimately they conquer Jerusalem, and the Hebrews lost. And yet, we have this holy day, this Hanukkah. We have this holy day. We have this Hanukkah, which is this great and gorgeous celebration that people are doing all over the world today, which tells the story of this great victory. But if you check history, right, it turns out that, not exactly true, right? That's not exactly what happened. So how do we put it together? So just stay with me. Let's just open our hearts. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. You see, the masters who established the holiday of Hanukkah, they weren't unaware of the history. They knew the history. They knew that the victory was short-lived. They knew the victory was a partial victory. They knew it was partial fulfillment. But now let's open our hearts together. To be an evolutionary, right? To pick up the torch, to participate in the evolution of love, to know that it's ours to do at this moment in time, is also to be able to celebrate partial victories. We don't need a total victory. We almost never get a total victory. Our fulfillments are partial. Our victories are sometimes short-lived. But the ability to be an evolutionary, the ability to be an outrageous lover, is to rejoice in partial fulfillment. Wow. To rejoice in short-lived victories. To know that those moments in between when we're victorious, they actually add up. Those points of light become 1,000 points of light. Just like the new imaginal cells in the caterpillar that's hanging in a chrysalis that's turning into a butterfly. There's only individual imaginal cells and they all get wiped out by the immune system of the caterpillar. But one by one, those imaginal cells begin to link together until you get clumps and clusters and configurations of imaginal cells. And gradually, the caterpillar turns into a butterfly. Each imaginal cell, even if it's wiped out, even if it doesn't seem to last, actually leaves an impression, leaves an imprint, participates in the evolution of love. And so Hannukah, paradoxically, and I want to see if we can kind of grab this because it's so gorgeous from the perspective of history. Let me just ask you a question. Where are the Greek Seleucids, the great Greek Seleucid Empire? Where is it today? Nowhere. It exists no place in the world. Does everyone get that? Right? The mightiest power in 160 before the Common Era has disappeared. But that little band of outrageous lovers who came together and fought the good fight and stood for integrity and stood against the wave of Hellenism that sought to depersonalize the infinite dignity and gorgeousness of the unique self-individual. That band of outrageous lovers that retook the temple and lit the menorah, right? Lit the candelabrum in the temple. That band of outrageous lovers, they established Hannukah, and all over the world today, people are lighting Hannukah candles, right? And wow, to get that, that's the power of the band of outrageous lovers. And next week and the week after, as we come to Christmas, and we talk about the crucifixion, and we talk about the Roman Empire, and we talk about everyone gathered in Rome as, right, a little band of outrageous lovers, Mary, the mother, and Mary, the beloved, and a few disciples, not even all of them, gather around the cross. And all the great power of Rome, right, lives and revels in Jerusalem. And again, many of the Hebrews had joined the Romans, but this little band gathered around a cross. Wow, Rome is gone. And the Greek Seleucids are gone, but Christmas is here. Hannukah is here. Because Hannukah stands for, and I'm going to focus on Hannukah now, right, the ability to rejoice in partial fulfillment. So I just want to ask us, okay, let's see if we can kind of find this together, okay? How many of us, as we come together and we are here as revolutionaries, we are here in this moment between utopia and dystopia to actually realize that we are evolution coming awake to itself. We are conscious evolution incarnate. We are evolution realizing its true nature as evolutionary love. We are the realization that we live in an amorous cosmos. We're about to do amor. So let me introduce a new phrase. We live in an amorous, A-M-O-R, and an amorous cosmos, a cosmos of desire and a cosmos of allurement, a cosmos which seeks ever greater intimacy, a cosmos whose evolutionary trajectory is in the first principles and first values we've articulated, the progressive deepening of intimacies. That's who we are. And all of us, each of us, in order to take our place, take our seat at the table of history and participate in this band of outrageous lovers, each one of us is living an individual life someplace, somewhere in the world. And our lives, how many of you, right, on this call, how many of us on this call live lives of absolute fulfillment? How many people? How many? Tell me how many. Tell me how many people are living a life of absolute fulfillment. No one, not one person. And anyone who says they are is lying. You're lying. There's not one person on this call who's living a life of absolute fulfillment. Absolute fulfillment is not the nature of the relative world. We live lives of partial fulfillment. But our brilliance, our light, our wonder, our evolutionary nature is that we have the capacity to have utter radical joy and partial fulfillment. And so the masters declare Hanukkah a victory to be celebrated for generations, even though it's only a partial victory, even though it's ephemeral, even though it seems to last for a short time, even though for a moment it seems like we might be tilting at a windmill. But we know that evolution never scientifically forgets a breakthrough. And now hold this with me, okay? Friends, let's open our hearts. It's so beautiful. Evolution never forgets a breakthrough. There's a sacred text which reads, Kevan sha'ala shuv lo yarad. Once you ascend, you never descend. It doesn't mean you never contract. It doesn't mean you never fall down. But once you actually open up a door and open up a new portal and establish a new structure of consciousness, then that structure of consciousness coheres, links to, allures to itself, attracts to itself other imaginal cells. Those imaginal cells, those points of consciousness, those points of light come together to form a mighty torch of liberation, a mighty torch of humanism, a mighty torch of caring, a mighty torch of outrageous love. Hanukkah is an outrageous love victory. It's a partial victory. And in many senses, we're just at the beginning together. One mountain belongs to all of us. We're just at the beginning, right, of building one mountain together. And often I think, wow, right? I go, wow, we've been going for what, 215, 220 weeks, right? Someone will put the exact number in the chat box. And it's a partial victory, 218 weeks. It's a partial victory. We're not there yet. And we've got a lot more of this partial victory to realize. We've got to expand and deepen and bring more people into the center, right? And create, right, many more cascading waves. We're at the very beginning of the beginning. We've been going 3-4 years. We're just getting started. It's a partial victory. But actually, every week we come together, and every clip that gets edited by Lady J and by Jamie and by Hans and by David, and every Dharma recapitulation written by Christina Amelon, and every, right, gorgeous piece done by Krista, and everything held by Shahat and Claire, right? And every dimension of the Outrageous Love Project, right, that's led, and the Eros Project by Christina, and everything that Terry does, and Tom, right? And all of us, right? Every single one of us, every place that we are, and anyone who wants to step in, and anyone wants to step in is wildly, completely, and absolutely welcome to step in and to step up and to participate and to give, right? To give everything you have. Let's give it all together. But we're at the beginning and it's partial fulfillment. And every Sunday, when we love each other more madly than ever before, and we stand in the breach and we articulate the evolutionary love codes, and we speak the new language of the future human, we speak the language of the new human and the new humanity. When we realize that we are in this Da Vinci moment, but we're not asleep in this Da Vinci moment. Just like in the Renaissance, we're at a time between worlds and a time between stories. And we come together and we articulate the source code, and we evolve the source code of culture and consciousness together with these evolutionary love codes. And we do it by feeling each other, right? By loving each other, right? That is a victory. It's a great and triumphant and wondrous victory. Is it partial fulfillment? Yes, of course it is. Is it in some sense ephemeral? Of course it is. And yet it's inscribed in the heart of divinity. It's inscribed in the heart of reality. Something new is engraved. Our lips impress on the lips of she. And something new is born in that space in between us, as we, in the language of the mystics, arouse the feminine waters and bring together Nashke, Arav, Rakia, earth and sky, touch and kiss. So Hanukkah, right? We're in Hanukkah now. Right? Hanukkah is the celebration of partial fulfillment. Right? Can you feel the light of Hanukkah? Next week's Christmas, this week's Hanukkah, Ramadan. Right? We with us? Can we feel it? Right? A little bit of light. Here's the sentence: a little bit of light dispels so much of darkness, right? A little bit of light. Can we get that sentence? Right? A little bit of light dispels so much of the darkness. So let's catch the next piece. The next piece is wonderful. I mean, it's gorgeous. And Barbara and I talked about this just a couple of months before she passed. Who's familiar with what's called the miracle of Hanukkah? What's the miracle of Hanukkah? So the miracle of Hanukkah, they say, is that the candelabra in the temple, which has eight placeholders for candles, the candelabra in the temple requires pure olive oil to light it. They come back to the temple, these Maccabees, this band of outrageous lovers. They burst into the temple. They retake Jerusalem. They retake the precincts of the temple, and they want to light the menorah. They want to light this candelabrum. But they only have enough pure olive oil, because you can only light the candelabrum with pure olive oil. They only have enough pure oil for one day. And once you light, you're supposed to continue lighting. You can't just light and stop. And they say, you know what? We're not going to light. We're not going to light. But somehow they do. And then, right, the light burns for 8 days instead of one. They just had enough oil for one day, and the light burns for 8 days instead of one day. So we celebrate the miracle of Hanukkah, an 8-day miracle. But 1 second, that's not true. Everything you just said, Mark, is just not true, because let's just do the mathematics. Simple math. If there was enough oil for, right, and Helma, you and I just talked about this. So there was enough oil for one day, and it lasted 8 days. So the miracle, I'm going to go to the chat box. The miracle was how many days? How many days was the miracle? Anybody in the chat box? Anybody awake, alive? 7, right? Absolutely 7, right? 7 days, right? Thank you, Myra, right? Thank you, Shati, 7 days. So why are we celebrating at 8? It should be a 7-day holiday. So the question the mystics ask, and I want to ask if someone can write in the chat box, you can get the way interior scientists speak. They speak in their own code. So in the interior sacred text, they always open with the question. And the question is, what was the miracle of the first day? Does everyone get that? What wasn't, just ask it to yourself. If you're sitting with someone, just turn to that person and say, what was the miracle of the first day? Right? What was the miracle of the first day? And that's a terminus technis. That's a technical term in mysticism, right? The mystics turn to each other and they say, what was the miracle of the first day? Right? So let's see if we can just turn to each other and say it. What was the miracle of the first day? What was the miracle of the first day? What was the miracle of the first day? Hey, could I ask you a question? What was the miracle of the first day? Stay with the question. Before you go to the answer, just be with the question, right? What was the miracle of the first day? Who can write the question? Just write the question in the chat box, right? Hey, what was the miracle of the first day? What was the miracle of the first day? Right? You get that? So stay with me. It's so deep. It's so beautiful. And there are thousands of pages written in texts of interior science to answer this question. What was the miracle of the first day? It's the great evolutionary question. So just stay super close. It's super beautiful. And there's 2 approaches to the answer, and they're both equally beautiful. First, wow, they're sitting there that day, right? Wow, they're sitting there that day. And remember that everyone had thought that the temple was over. Everyone had thought that according to all the currents of history and CNN and all the different internet sites, everyone had reported Jerusalem is over. Outrageous love doesn't have a chance. Dr. Phil says, what is outrageous love? I don't even understand what that is. That's ridiculous. Right? What's outrageous love? Right? We have no idea what that is. That's a silly idea. Let's get real. Let's get pragmatic. Let's get practical. Let's get strategic. So Hellenism has won. And no one thinks after the Hellenists take the temple that there's ever going to be a return, right? A new renaissance, a re-enchantment of reality. We're never again going to use and be able to access the pure oil, right? The pure oil. And the pure oil in the original Hebrew is 8, shmona, shemen, S-H-E-M-E-N. Oil is the same word as shmona, which is 8. 8 is that which is beyond nature. 7, the cycle of 7 is nature. 8 is outrageous love. Ordinary love is 7. Outrageous love is 8, that which transcends nature, that which the spark that animates the whole thing, that's not explainable or reducible to measurement. It's the immeasurable, it's the priceless, it's the precious beyond precious. So wow. So everyone's completely sure that we're never going to get back to the pure oil. Everything's now commodified. Everything's now measurable. Everything's now priced. right? Everything now fits into a particular algorithmic calculus, right? Designed to elicit more profit to a very narrow band, right, of stakeholders. We're never going to get back to the pure oil. We've got no chance. And so no reason to actually hide a cruise, right? A little vessel of pure oil. It's never going to be used again. But friends, stay with me. All the priests in Jerusalem have joined the Hellenists. All the establishment, all the hierarchies have joined the Greek Syrians. But there's a little band of people, a couple of priests, and they say it's not over. And they say, Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker, that means that eternity, right? The thrust of evolution is going to birth this oil anew. The thrust of evolution is going to generate, right, new possibility. And they take one little cruise of oil, just enough for one day, and they go and hide that cruise of oil. And they know that in their lives, they may not live to ever have that cruise of oil be found, but they hide it for the next generation. And then the next generation comes, and there's this moment of triumph, and they need the pure oil, and they search and search, and they find, right, in the hidden place, a cruise of oil that was hidden by the previous generations. And every generation participates in its evolution of consciousness. And every generation has to hide a cruise of oil to be discovered, right, by the next generation. Right? Wow, that's the miracle of the first day. Are we actually hiding a cruise of pure oil? And will it be there for the next generation to pick up? Will we ensure that there is a next generation? Will we ensure that there is a future? And everything we do in One Mountain, right, the writing of the Great Library, right, when we come together every week, right, during the summer, right, the dance parties, right, whenever we come together and we open our hearts in outrageous love and we create new bodies, right, of work, we evolve the source code, we're in this great Da Vinci project, that's the pure oil, right? It's partial fulfillment, right? It's not funded the way it needs to be, and it doesn't have all the resources it needs, but it's a cruise of pure oil that we are guaranteeing with our hearts, with our commitment, with our sacrifice, with our dedication, that it's going to be there, right, to carry on, right, to light the next torch and to bring us towards the fulfillment of Homo sapien and Homo amor. What's the miracle of the first day? That at a time when it seemed hopeless, there was a band of outrageous lovers that knew that the pure oil would be lit again in a new and evolved form. And they went and they hid that little cruise, K-R-U-S-E, cruise, right? They hid the little vessel of oil so it could be lit, right, in the future. That's the covenant between generations. But here's the second reason. Here's the second miracle, right, of the first day. So the second miracle of the first day goes like this. Imagine the scene there in Jerusalem. There's these groups of priests and groups of politicians and groups of entrepreneurs and groups of strategists, and they want to light this great candelabra. And there's just enough oil for what? Just enough oil for, right? For one day. And so what do people say? They say, don't start. How can you start? There's only enough oil for one day. We don't have a budget, right? We don't have researchers. We don't have enough staff, right? We don't have enough money for Google ads to, right, to spread One Mountain, right? How could we just start with these? We don't have enough resources. We just can't do it. Or we just don't have the budget. It's not real. We can't get it started. Let's wait. Let's wait till we can when everything's ready, right? There's too much controversy around, right? In other words, let's just not start, right? Because it's just not going to work. And then there's one group of people, just a few of them, who speak against the majority and against the wise voices of pragmatism and against the intelligent strategists and against the wise SEO people and against the marketing experts and against the people who say, we need 4 or 5 people on staff to do this. We can't do it ourselves. And they say, no, you're right. We do need all those things, but we're going to start anyways. We're going to leap. We're going to leap and the net will appear. And we're going to make a decision that we are going to trust the goodness of possibility. And we're going to trust the possibility of possibility. We're going to trust each other. We're going to trust each other's commitment. And we're going to know that a little bit of light dispels a lot of darkness. And we're going to light the candle on the first day. And the miracle of the first day was the trust, the commitment, the sacrifice, the dedication right? The knowing that allowed that small group of people to speak against all the wise majority and to light the candle, even though there was only enough oil for the first day. And friends, that's what we do together every week, this last 218 weeks, right? We don't quite have enough oil, right? We don't have enough oil for 8 days. That's true, but it doesn't matter. We know that the oil is going to come. We know that the miracle of Hanukkah is real. We know that the miracle of Christmas is real. And I love this time of year. Don't you love this time of year, friends? You can feel it alive, right? Bethlehem is alive, right? Jerusalem, right, is alive. Scrooge, the visions of Scrooge, right, are alive. So friends, it's so good to be with you. It's so good to be in the miracle of Hanukkah together. It's so good to be in one mountain, many paths, one mountain. It's so good to be together participating in the evolution of love. It's so good. So much gratitude, right, for all of us. So much gratitude for the need, the utter radical need for what we're doing here.